As we prepare for the Easter and Passover season, I wish you all a time of renewal with your families, remembering that renewal is important to all of us. The word recreate, is in recreate, and we have to renew ourselves so we're strong for the challenges ahead and for all of life's opportunities. And that's why it just seems so off-kilter that as we leave for the Easter vacation, we do so with a coldness toward so many people in our country, over 2 million, now getting up to 2.4 million people who have lost their unemployment benefits. They've lost their jobs through no fault of their own. The Senate worked in a bipartisan fashion earlier this week and passed legislation to renew the emergency employment insurance, the action to restore a critical economic lifeline for more than 2 million, now they're telling me today, 2.4 million Americans who depend on unemployment insurance. It's really hard to understand. And I really enlist all of you in the press. We don't see any coverage of all of the families that are suffering because of this. You know, at Christmas, when we see in the paper, this family needs help, send money to the fund that our newspaper has, and those stories are heartrending, and people react to them. Well, certainly personal generosity and philanthropy is important, but we have to have public policy that meets the needs of the American people. So I would hope that as in those very illustrative and heartwarming stories that move people to action, there'd be some coverage in the press and the national media and the local press, and especially in the hard-hit areas, that would say this is what this means to these families. And not only that, many of these people are veterans, many of them are women. It's a full representation of our community, many of them with advanced degrees, all of them hoping to have work, some of them affected by sequestration and other budget cuts here. As the private sector job numbers increase, the public sector numbers go down, but the unemployment is across the board, and of course some of it is regional. But the other part of it is it immediately injects demand. Unemployment benefits are checks that people spend immediately because they're for necessities, injecting demand into the economy, creating jobs. There are those some economists who say it's almost nothing does more as an immediate stimulus than unemployment insurance benefits. So the Senate overcame their differences. We have 193 members on our discharge petition, and we would hope that the Speaker would take up the vote. You know, we're supposed to be a marketplace of ideas here, a place where you come and debate the issues of the day. Why can't we have a debate on unemployment insurance? Why can't we have a debate on immigration reform? Why can't we have a debate on pay equity, paycheck fairness? That's just out of the question. That's just not right. That's not what our responsibility to the American people is. We're supposed to find solutions, and one way to find solutions is to have the public see what the debate is on the subject. People are very wise. They have great ideas, and they have good judgment. So I would hope that we would get more attention paid to this. Is an emergency. Imagine any other situation where 2.5 million people lost their jobs and had no safety net paycheck to see them through, which, by the way, that safety net is not just for those individual workers and their families. It's for our economic system so that the economy can go and unemployment goes down, unemployment goes up, but there's the safety net for the free market to function. As we go into this holy season, I'm reminded of the Gospel of Matthew, where he said, "For where your treasure is, there also your heart will be." Clearly, if you applied the Gospel of Matthew to the budgets that are on the floor today, you would see where the heart is of the Republican Party, with the wealthiest people in America, with special interest in our country, and not with the great middle class. By contrast, the House Democratic budget does show where our heart is and our head. And because that is because we allocate the resources, the treasure, the federal budget, as a statement of our national values to meet the needs of the American people. It's about growth to create jobs, which solves many ills. It's about investing in education to help people reach their aspirations and to keep America number one. It's about our seniors. It's about our seniors in preserving some of the initiatives in the Affordable Care Act that assist seniors instead of, in the Republican budget, turning Medicare into a voucher program. At the same time, giving a $200,000 tax break for people making over $1 million a year, and a $2,000 tax increase to most people in the middle class. Our children, our seniors, our budget, our statement of values, our treasure, our heart. Again, this budget is not just about numbers. It's about values. It's a statement of our national values. At least it should be. And I think you'll see on the floor, you've seen on the floor this week, a sharp contrast. You have to let the American people be the judge. At least we're having this debate, however brief. Now we have a Democratic alternative on the floor, 10 minutes on each side. How could that be an appropriate debate on a statement of our national values? How can the American people truly judge what is at stake here? We have to ask the American people. They can be the judge. Is it a statement of their values that over 190,000 children will be cut off of Head Start? Children learning, parents earning, how important that is, and the jobs that go with it. There's a statement of values of the American people that 3.5 million children in 3.4 disadvantaged children in disadvantaged areas will have those investments of Title I cut off. What does that do about a society that is a democracy and therefore wants to give everybody a fair shot? 616,000 fewer students will receive Pell Grants. Pell Grants being those grants to students who are in greatest need for financial assistance in order to further their college education, higher education. This is quite an amazing thing, and again, it is the difference between the Democrats and the Republicans. For where your treasure is, there also will be your heart. I had the sad experience yesterday. I felt very privileged to go to Fort Hood. President speak all of the presentations by the military and by the president and by Secretary McHugh were so moving, and the families were so sad. And of course, no words are adequate to comfort them. But I hope that they know that the country grieves with them. And again, we have to focus on the fact that was it 2 weeks ago, we had on the mall something like 1,982 flags, one for each of the veterans who took his life or her life since January 1st, 22 a day. We really need to address the problem because in Fort Hood, it's such a patriotic center of our country, and these people sign up to protect and defend, to keep us the home of the brave and the land of the free. But they don't expect to go to work and have a fellow person in uniform take their lives. But that's a tragedy in itself, the perpetrator of the crime. In any event, I'd be pleased to take any questions you may have. Yes, ma'am?
Madam Leader, over the last couple of years, the pay equity legislation that Congress has looked at has focused on, as you say, equal pay for equal work. As we've had these discussions, one issue that continues to come up is that higher paying positions are often held by men. It's not just going beyond the equal
Right,
work
I understand.
issue.
I understand.
Is there anything that Congress can do about that, and are those discussions that you folks are having in the Democratic conference?
Well, I appreciate your question because it is important to enlarge the issue. Yes, where there's the same job, same qualification, same experience, there should be the same pay, and we will continue to make that fight. But we also have to have a recognition that women in non-traditional, what have been considered non-traditional fields need to be encouraged and opportunities opened up to them. That the Small Business Committee, I believe, has legislation to make sure that the federal government honors its commitment to entrepreneurship of women, not just about women as employees, but women as employers. And so clearing the way for many more women to succeed as entrepreneurs the way many men did, being contractors for the federal government, and then certainly beyond in the private sector. But I do think that the higher education of women, women now are probably more, at least as many, but maybe more women in institutions of higher learning, getting degrees that will enable them to get those higher salaries. But that's important. That's a really important part of it. Fortune 500, 20 CEOs who are women. It can't be for lack of talent. And so we know that there has to be an opening up to that. And this is really important because I don't know, I think I mentioned this last week, but many of you did see that Janet Yellen, we honored her, the new chair of the Fed, and we're so thrilled to have a woman head of a central bank, the only one in the world. We have the managing director of the IMF as a woman as well, but the only central bank chairman being a woman here in our country. And in her remarks, which were reported in the press, she really said that a lot of the economic success of the 20th century is attributed to many more women working and many more women in the economy. And we have to do so much more, was part of her message. And that's what we have to do. And as I've said to you before, Prime Minister Abe at Davos said, we're going to grow our economy because we're going to have many more women in the economy. The president of Colombia, when he visited us here, said, I said, what is the secret of, because he was telling us how his economy was going to grow, what is your secret? He said, it's no secret. It's about women and the economy. So that's why when we say, when women succeed, America succeeds, it's not just a title of our Women and Economic Agenda for Women and Families, it's a statement of fact. It's a statement of fact. So your question is the perfect one, because we're not talking about women making less because they're doing a different job. We're talking about the same job in that particular instant. But we certainly have to raise the possibilities for women in corporate America, in entrepreneurship, and their own risk-taking in terms of small businesses and the rest. And that will grow our economy, and it will grow, the rate of GDP growth will be very, very significant. There are various, some people say 2%, some people say 6%, whatever it is. It's very, very positive for our economy. And so some of the things we can do in terms of government contracting, the rest, that's one, about being more receptive to, again, what would used to be considered non-traditional occupations, which have paid higher. They're becoming less non-traditional because many more women are engaged in them, but having an openness to all of that. And right now, frankly, there is some, shall we say, behavioral or sensitivity to that issue that has to be heightened. Yes, sir.
Democrats have run in the past on the Ryan budget with limited results. Some would say that it hasn't worked well at all. Just wondering how you plan, as you're pushing that issue this year, how you plan to tweak the message a little bit so that it might resonate a little bit more with voters, and how, if you had to boil it down, what the Ryan budget does to for America, for the country, for the middle class, if you had to boil it down into kind of a one sentence, kind of something you can put on a bumper sticker that might be more easily digestible than saying, here's this.
Well, first of all, I don't remember us making the full throttle, this election is about the Ryan budget. The elections are always about jobs. But the persistence, now it's different, the persistence of Ryan in doubling down and making matters worse with the budget he has now, make it totally a moral imperative for us to make that fight the center stage. We always talk about jobs, but seeing it through the prism of what the Ryan budget does. It's not, as I said, a path to prosperity, it's a road to recession. On the contrary, the House Democratic budget is about growth. It says you want to reduce the deficit, create jobs, bring revenue in to the Treasury. That's one way to do it. And how do you create those jobs? By investing in science and technology and innovation in our country, which the Ryan budget does not do. And then you talk about education. Innovation begins in the classroom. So some is short-term, some is longer-term, but it is, again, a moral imperative for us to make sure the public knows how serious they are about this budget. Some people think it's so ridiculous, dismiss it as a joke. It's not funny. It's deadly serious. And it's not good for children and other living things. How we reduce it to a bumper sticker, well, we'll see. But the fact is that this is a case that has to be brought to the American people. And you know what? You're going to see as we do the appropriations bills, based on a budget that they probably will pass today, you really cannot meet the needs of the American, honor our responsibilities to the American people. Their own chairman said that with the budget numbers that they put forth before. So it's kind of exciting, as a matter of fact, because they're serious about it. It's devastating to the prospects for the future for our children and families, and it must be outed for what it is.
Do you see it as a district-by-district issue, where Medicare cuts will play in Florida and lack of UI in Rhode
I
Island?
think Medicare floats all over the place. I do agree with you. UI is more regional, depending on the unemployment insurance that is there, and that's not a central issue to the core of the Ryan budget. I mean, it's again another manifestation of the heartlessness of the Republican budget. But it's a matter of excitement. And I think I said to you last week, 3 things happened last week, right at the start of the week. One, the numbers for the Affordable Care Act went past 7 million. Now, today, they're telling us 7.5 million, and we still have another week of the signups. 7.5 million, that's in addition to over 3 million, probably get closer to 5 million on Medicaid, and 3.1 million for young people on their parents' policy, so around 15 million. So anyway, over 7 million in the marketplaces, and that figure. The second thing that happened was the McCutcheon decision. What are we missing here? Why don't we just destroy any confidence that the American people have in government? We have to show them that you cannot separate, as Walter Reed said, you cannot separate the ballot box from the bread box. That is tied. The well-being of the American people is tied to what happens in elections. So if this, and the third thing was the release of the Ryan budget. The Ryan budget, that is the substantive argument. But the McCutcheon decision demands that we use everything at our disposal, be it the social media, you all, the social media, whatever communication we can get to the public to say, this is why these decisions in the court are wrong, because they prevent an opportunity for you to hear the facts about how you will be affected, how you will be directly affected by this. And the ACA, the Affordable Care Act numbers, give us a comfortable pivot to the budget, job creation, a government of the many, not a government of the money, and this is what their money wants them to buy. No raise in the minimum wage, no equal pay for equal work, voucherize Medicare, cut off kids from unemployment, from Head Start and their families, affected in so many other ways. Many kids, disadvantaged kids, 3.5 million, 8,000 teachers cut under this budget. Again, hundreds of thousands of people affected by Pell Grants. So that you cannot disconnect the political piece from the policy piece when the court makes a decision heavily in favor of money and the special interest that will spend it endlessly without any judgment. Yeah.
A question about race for just a moment.
Race?
Race. There was a sharp exchange in a hearing a couple of days ago between the Attorney General and Louis Gohmert from Texas about contempt. And then in some remarks yesterday, the Attorney General suggested, he said that some of the, the way that he has been treated and maybe the way that the administration and this president has been treated is because of race, and putting this on the Republicans. Do you think that there is something, even if it's subtle, even if it's potentially unintentional, that's going on with high figures of color in this administration when it comes to dealing with Republicans?
I know what you just told me, and I read a little bit about it. I was, as I said, in Texas yesterday, so I didn't see what the exchange was that provoked that remark. It's a very difficult subject to talk about. I think race has something to do with the fact that they're not bringing up an immigration bill. I've heard them say to the Irish, if it were just you, this would be easy. I think that, generally speaking, they are disrespectful of the representatives of the president's administration. Very disrespectful. I mean, in other words, we've all been on both sides of that discussion in the committee, and we always say, whatever it is that you are agreeing or disagreeing, we always owe our witnesses respect. So I don't really want to go to that place. I would just say that their disdain for anybody who disagrees with them is pretty across the board. And I don't want to go to the race piece, but I think it certainly applies to women. It's so self-evident that it applies to women. So I think but, in other words, I don't want to be distracted. The fact is we have to talk about how we create jobs in our country, how we build an economy that works for everyone. I always say when people, and God knows I've been the brunt of a lot of it, it's their problem. Whatever it is, it's their problem. Ignore them. Show them how unimportant they are. If they have a problem with race or women or whatever, it's their problem. They're on the wrong side, not only of history, but on the wrong side of the future. Yes, Sam. Yes.
On immigration, you
Yes.
mentioned immigration. Just to be clear, do you endorse the position, the recommendation by the Hispanic Caucus of stopping deportations for those undocumented immigrants covered by the Senate immigration bill?
I do. I'm very excited about it. I trust their judgment on it, and I'm very pleased with the attitude that the Secretary brings to the issue. But since you brought up immigration, here we have 191 co-sponsors, signatories to the discharge petition, 199 sponsors of the legislation, even 3 Republicans. Why can't we have that debate on the floor of the House? Yesterday, we welcomed, before I went to Texas, we welcomed the Fast for Families bus trip back to Washington, D.C. They traveled like 11,000 miles, weaving around the country, visiting congressional offices and communities. I saw them in Florida on one of their stops down there at the Florida International University. And you all covered in the Hill press, there was a little coverage, but I don't see anything in the press about that. 11,000 miles. Do you think if somebody went 11,000 miles to do something, there wouldn't be a mention on the nightly news or something, especially since they've been doing it, and it's a reinforcement. It's not a flash in the pan. This is who we are as a nation of immigrants. We must pass comprehensive immigration reform, and we can. 11 million people waiting for the legalization that the Senate bill provides with a path to citizenship. 11 million people. 1,100 people deported each day, one person standing in the way, the Speaker of the House and his caucus. So let's have the debate. We think the votes are there. We're absolutely certain they're there. Give us a vote.
But it seems there's a change of shift in the direction that the immigrant groups are mentioning of President Obama stopping deportations regardless what the Republicans do.
Well, that's a gift to the Republicans, because the fact is the Republicans are never going to move unless they think there's a price to pay politically for not bringing the bill to the floor. The reason that the deportations are taking place is because the Republican Congress demands it. I don't know if you cover this in the Appropriations Committee. They demand fill those 34,000 beds. Now we don't care if people are sick, elderly, frail, or whatever, fill those beds. That's what Congress has required. And they said, we won't have an immigration bill if the president lowers the deportations. And they have said, and one of their bills on the floor, if you can sue the president if you don't think he's obeying the law. And two ways he's not obeying the law is he issued DACA, the deferred, the Dreamers, the provision to allow Dreamers to have deferred action for at least 2 years. And the second one was if the president uses prosecutorial discretion to stop all these, then you can sue the president because he's breaking the law. So I say to our friends, look, I know, that's where I live. I have a magnificently beautiful mixed district, more minorities in my district than not, many of them not born in this country. And I see the pain and suffering of the deportations. But the answer, the medicine for every ill in the deportation is to pass comprehensive immigration reform. Stops the deportations, legalizes 11 million people in the country or thereabouts, if they meet the standards, and it's the right thing to do. So let's keep our focus. What is it that we want to do? We want to pass comprehensive immigration reform. What is it that we want to do? We want to stop the deportations. If the violation is only about a violation of status, we're not talking about other people. We're not talking about those who have broken the law in some other ways. We're talking about violation of status, immigration status. If we want to stop that, pass an immigration bill. But at least honor the American people. Give them the respect of saying, we're going to have a discussion of it on the floor of the House. It's a discussion in many households across America. It was a successful discussion in the United States Senate. In a bipartisan way, a bill was passed. Mum's the word in the House of Representatives. That's an old-time saying. So I say, in the House of Representatives.
What's your sense of how many Republicans might vote for unemployment insurance extension if it were to come to the floor? Have you been in any
Unemployment
negotiations?
extension. I'm sorry, I was still into the immigration mode. Oh, I think would be fine. Enough.
But have you
Enough.
been in negotiations with
Enough.
any
Enough.
Republicans?
Well, they are trying to, I think, get a vote on their side. Some of the ones who are. But look at what happened in the Senate. Members from district areas that don't have have high unemployment, like North Dakota or something like that, or some other places in the country. I don't mean to use that as an example, but their unemployment has some regional aspects to it, as we know. You see the senator from Nevada, where unemployment is high, being part of finding a solution. So I think there must be enough of them in places where the unemployment benefits need to be extended, that they should weigh in with the speaker and say, give us a vote. Give us a vote. Are you afraid of a vote because we would win? Are you trying to protect us because you don't think we would win? Well, we're willing to take that risk. I don't think it's about protection, by the way. I mean, they basically said this is not a priority for them. So it's going to take Abraham Lincoln, public sentiment is everything. You hold the key. You hold the key. Yes, sir. And then I have to go vote. No time left on the vote. Okay, just one real quick.
Medicare Advantage, which a lot of people on your side have been railing against ever since it was born so many years ago.
Yeah.
A couple days ago, as you know, CMS rolled back a lot of the cuts. Was this the right thing to do at this time, just because the insurance corporations are carping about their cuts on something?
No,
so many people on your side have called a slush fund?
No, I myself have been one who's criticized the richness of the Medicare Advantage in terms of its benefits to the insurance companies. However, having said that, at this time, the whole point of Medicare Advantage and the Affordable Care Act was to bring it in line with the fee-for-service. And it is well because of how we brought down the rising cost of health care in our country. What the administration did was consistent with being on a path to bringing.
People feel like it's kind of a giveaway when they look at that.
What is a giveaway? It's for now. We'll take a look at it again and see where it goes from there. But the whole point was to bring it in line with fee-for-service because of other things that are happening, a lowering of costs because of the Affordable Care Act. They're able to do that without making the cuts now. But that's not off the table at some other time if the other considerations are not present. I hope that you enjoy a renewing. Easter is just like my favorite holiday, so it's so. I mean, Christmas is the most fun, but Easter really the most triumphant and beautiful, and Passover at the same time. So in whatever way you celebrate, I think it's even Muhammad's birthday coming up soon. So however you observe or not, at least enjoy the onset of spring, and I look forward to seeing you in your renewed, recreated forms when we come back after the break. Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.